Hey guys, I'm Evan from Jito. Thanks for coming. Today we're going to talk about how to automate $2 billion of stake. So a little bit of context. I'm an engineer for Jito Labs. We're a contributor to the Jito network, which is in charge of Jito Sol. Recently, Labs has been building out this protocol called StakeNet, which is going to basically be a decentralized manager for Jito Sol. Went up to a DAO proposal recently, passed, and it's going to go live soon. So I'm going to tell you about that today. So yeah, we're going to start with just the overall landscape of liquid staking on Solana, some uniquenesses there and some challenges there. Talk about why StakeNet is an important solution for that. Talk about a bit of challenges and actually bringing it to fruition, and then some interesting directions that StakeNet could go now that it's here. So starting with the background of liquid staking on Solana, there's a few unique features that staking in general has on Solana. First, that it's delegated proof of stake. So unlike Ethereum, where you have these combined staker validators, any address on the network can create a stake account that is assigned to a specific validator. You also have a very short unbonding period. So it's only 2 days, can be much longer on Ethereum. And then for liquid staking, you have this pseudo enshrined smart contract called the SPL stake pool that a lot of the biggest stake pools use, similar to the SPL token program, if you guys are familiar with that. And then I think the last thing is that if you can tell by this dashboard showing the relative dominance of different LSTs on Solana, it's a pretty dynamic market. The biggest players at the beginning of Solana DeFi in 2021, not so big now. Some have completely dropped off. And then also to note, Jito is this big purple wave here, which is super exciting. But then zooming out to all of stake on Solana, liquid staking is just this tiny sliver at the top. So there's a ton of room to grow for all parties, which also is going to be a fun thing to watch play out. And shout out to Andrew for these Dune dashboards. So breaking down the SPL stake pool program, we have this contract that's been audited 7 times. It's super battle tested. It's sort of the de facto stake pool implementation. This is what Jito Sol runs on. So it creates a bunch of stake accounts. Each one of these is assigned to a validator, and the stake pool has these authorities that let it move stake around and do things with it. So in the Jito Solana case, the Jito Sol case, it's delegating only to Jito Solana validators because that's something that the stake pool wants to incentivize for the network. We have 2 important authorities here. One is the manager authority, and this is what sets fees for the stake pool and can set the staker authority itself. And this is the one that's actually owned by the Jito DAO, on a governance contract level. And then the staker authority, this is what actually is moving stake around and can add and remove validators. One challenge with having this staker authority, again, you have this 2-day stake move, deactivation and activation period. Because you have new stake coming into the stake pool every day, all times a day, you need to be constantly executing transactions with that authority, which is challenging because that means it can't really be a DAO-owned thing or even a multi-sig. It's just not practical. So what this ends up being is it ends up being a hot wallet that's running on some server, and it's just centralized infrastructure. So you have this centralized team that's running this thing. You need to often build all this other off-chain infrastructure, databases about validator data, so you can be monitoring those. Might be relying on random APIs or RPCs that you're not running yourself. So there's a lot of permissioned aspects here, which is a challenge. And there's also no guaranteed visibility into the system unless the team provides it. So, and then the extreme example with having the centralized infrastructure is that the actual team running with this centralized key pair running their stake pool can just shut down and then stop running the stake pool. So this is actually the case that happened with Lido on Solana, with ST Sol a few months ago. And you can see that the TVL has basically gone down to nothing since they decided to stop working. The craziest thing here is that like there's still $24 million of stake sitting in this stake pool that's earning like zero yield on that money. All of those validators are like deactivated at this point. It's pretty insane that this is even possible. And yeah, no shade to Lido. They're doing great stuff on the ETH side, but it's just like crazy that this can even happen. So begs the question, is there a better way? And that's where StakeNet comes in. So, all right. So what is StakeNet? First of all, it's not restaking. If you guys have seen any of the announcements recently, just want to make that out of the gate. But what it is, it's this decentralized management protocol for Jito Sol. So what that actually means is that staker authority that moves stake around now becomes an on-chain entity that's managed by a program and can manage all of the stake for the stake pool. How that actually comes into practice is you need, I guess, backing up to actually run a stake pool. There's like two main jobs that you need to do. First, you need to select a set of validators. And then once you have that validator selection, then you need to get stake to those validators. So it's separated here into two programs, the validator history program, which puts all of that context about validators on-chain, and then the steward program, which basically takes that context about validators, will select them, and then automatically manage all of the distribution of stake. So we have this protocol. It's open source, going live in hopefully a few days. Here's what it actually is going to be handling. So the validator history program is capable of handling 3 years of like data for each validator on mainnet for all Solana validators. The steward program itself can support 5,000 candidate validators in a stake pool, and it requires about 11,000 transactions run every 2 days to keep everything running. But importantly, these transactions can be run by anyone. It's all permissionless. And then on launch day, it'll be managing about 12 million SOL in TVL, which puts us at current prices, hopefully it hasn't kept falling, but at $2 billion. This is what it actually looks like from a diagram perspective. That Jito Sol at the bottom is that diagram from earlier. Now it's just one small component of this. So starting at the top, we have these keeper bots, which are bots that anyone can run that trigger those permissionless instructions to basically keep the trains running on time, keep everything working. There's these two programs in the middle, the validator history program, which is that putting metadata about validators on-chain in like a consumable way. Think of it like an on-chain database type thing. That feeds into the steward program, which then will invoke these stake movement instructions on Jito Sol. On the other side, you have the DAO, which will have control over the config and like the parameters that are used for determining delegation. So determining how we score these validators, and then other aspects about like how many validators do you even want to have in the pool, things like that. To make it a little more concrete, so the validator history program, this is Jito.network/StakeNet. If you're interested in just data about validators on chain, or and like how to, like if you want to stake to a validator or whatever, this is similar to other services that are on Solana. Like I don't know if you've seen like StakeWiz or Validators.app or these other early ones like Solana Beach. Those were great services for early Solana days, but then this is now every single piece of this data is like from on-chain, from the validator history program. We have nearly like a year of data in that at this point, maybe 6 to 9 months or so. And it's all on-chain. So here's breaking down some of the fields and where they actually come from to ensure that they're all like verified and just how we aggregate them. So some of them come directly from on-chain, from the runtime. So like you have the vote program, which contains information about a validator's vote performance and their commission. There's the Jito tip programs, which have things like the MEV commission if they're running a Jito Solana validator. And then other places like the Solana gossip protocol, where you have this off-chain data, but it's actually signed, so you can verify the signature and verify the validity. The steward program itself, this is that on-chain brain for managing stake. So going back to that the job of a stake pool is selecting validators and then delegating stake. We've basically represented this whole thing as a state machine, which lives inside of an account on Solana, very large account. And so every 10 epochs, you're going to do these steps of scoring every single validator by passing in the validator history account, runs some formula, gives you a score. You do that for every single validator. Then you take all of the scores, you select the top 200 in JitoSol's case, and then given that selection, then every epoch you're going to be continuously rebalancing stake, giving stake to those validators. But then another fun thing is that we can monitor validators, and if they do anything malicious, like jack up their commission to 100%, for example, or they go completely offline, or any other like malicious behaviors that we don't want, and we want to instantly remove them from the pool, it's also going to track that and then handle that in the rebalance instruction. So one big state machine, and it's all permissionless. Some fun visuals of how you're actually going to be able to view it in the UI, view what's happening on chain. So the actual score, to break this down real quick, there's two main sections of the score. So there's a set of like yes or no criteria at the bottom. For example, are you even running the Jito Solana client? Are you outside of that validator super minority, the like top third of stake? Are you under acceptable level of like MEV commission, for example? These are all things that you need to pass to be a part of the validator set. And then there's another component that is basically the validator's yield that they're going to get from staking rewards net of their commission. So you combine all of that and you get a number that represents your score. We also have the full like mathematical definitions if you want to check those out on your own time. And then the last part is those crankers, which there's two pieces to crank. There's the validator history cranking, which is snapshotting these values and storing it in this on-chain database to get your like rolling history. And then the steward cranking, which is that state machine. So given the current step that we're working on, you execute the instructions that you need to in order to bring it to that next step. And yeah, anyone can run these. So the implementation hell, it just comes from trying to, like Austin was saying about, you have all of these constraints on Solana in order to make it fast. We ran into a lot of those working on this, but there's a lot of interesting like things, a lot of lessons learned, a lot of actually really fun problems to work on. I'm not going to go too deep into this, but feel free to hit me up about any of this in the future. Some cool things to highlight. Zero copy accounts and custom heap allocation. These are ways to basically get as much data into your instruction as possible, both reading it like on chain as well as loading it into your instruction and actually manipulating it. And then one other cool feature of Solana that's pretty unique to Solana is having the consensus and execution baked into the same runtime. So unlike Ethereum, where you have separate clients for consensus and execution, we have those directly in Solana, which means you can get information about a validator's performance and uptime directly from on-chain. Pretty cool. Not so fun things. List is a little bit longer here. Also working with events, very hard. Working with Anchor and then all of these other dependencies that brings in, very challenging. One other thing that is probably a lesson learned, if I could like do everything perfectly, ignoring the current state of the world, is like building both the stake pool contract and this steward contract in one, because you just there's so many side effects that you have to account for, and that goes to one of these other points, which is having everything being permissionless. So you have to check like every single input that's going into your smart contract and make sure that no like order that people run things in will mess things up, or if steps get missed from being run, that's not going to mess things up. So yeah, just forces you to think through everything very, very deeply. Some interesting directions that we could take this. I put that joke in just for Austin. Some interesting directions we could take this. Now that we have this, I think there are some of those fields from the validator history program that are still permission fields because they're coming from off-chain and it's hard to fully verify them. For example, like getting the total stake for a validator. There's some technical challenges with actually getting that on-chain. But you could do something like delegate the Oracle authority, which currently uploads those fields, to say like an AVS and have some economic security that's sort of backing the validity of that data. Another interesting one, people always talk about geographic stake distribution as being a really nice property of blockchains. And we have these IPs that are verified and on-chain. Would be cool to get some sort of like depend service that can, given an IP, could give you like a location by trying to triangulate like where it is in the world. Because there's a lot of off-chain databases that give you the location of an IP, but something like native Web3 would be pretty sick. Another obvious one is extending the steward program for any stake pool. So turning that scoring step and the rebalancing step, making those their own separate programs. So you could just update like the config of what the scoring program is. It invokes that program to calculate a score for you. And then you can change the stake pool's delegation or just have it be much more flexible without even needing to do a contract upgrade. And then a final interesting way to look at StakeNet is that it's this generalized, decentralized asset manager, which has two main components, and this maps to a lot of other projects on Solana, where you need to get this high quality verified data about some economic entities doing work in the world. You get that on chain in a verified manner, and then you can create this permissionless logic that then manages the like distribution or just manages those assets in general. Now that you have this whole like decentralized supply chain, so it's similar to, I think Parcel was mentioning this, where they have this Oracle method to get real estate data on chain, and that allows them to build out this decentralized perp dex, sort of maps onto the validator history program and then steward program in this case. And there's probably ways that AVSs can be used for decentralizing the inputs and running the crankers and things like that. Some takeaways. LSTs on Solana just got a huge upgrade, making them much more decentralized, transparent for how they run, and I think just a better, just more guarantees for the users of these products. And a lot of that is enabled because of the Solana runtime having these novel features like low transaction fees, the consensus embedded in execution, decentralized proof of stake, and yeah, shout out to OPAS. And then the final thing to think about is just how this decentralized asset management needs this bulletproof data supply chain and then an on-chain brain, and then you can do really cool novel applications on Solana. So yeah, thank you guys.